Hello everybody, this is Refresh and I'm here to take a look at Mayday Games' premium sleeves for card size 70 by 120 millimeters. This is the same size as tarot card, so you can also use these sleeves for tarot decks as well. These sleeves are clear and you can purchase one pack of these sleeves for $4.95. For that, you're going to get 75 sleeves, and that makes each sleeve an average of around 7 cents per sleeve, putting this somewhere in the middle of the pack when it comes to cost per sleeve. Let's take a look at what's inside. As you can see, these sleeves are smooth and glossy on both sides. And now we're going to count to make sure that there are 75 sleeves here. Alright, there are 76 sleeves here, so there's one extra sleeve, which is better than there being less sleeves. Now we'll check the thickness of these sleeves. 75 sleeves comes in at 1.5 centimeters, and that means that each sleeve is going to be 200 microns thick, or 100 microns each face, which is the standard for thicker sleeves. Now to measure the dimensions. These sleeves are 73 millimeters wide by 123 millimeters tall. And now we can see how a card fits. I have one Century Spice Road card here, which is 70 by 120. And as you can see, it fits pretty well. There is just a little bit of play around the sides and just a little bit of space between the opening of the card sleeve and the top edge of the card. That does mean that the top edge of the card is a little bit more exposed than some of you would prefer, but it also does mean that there isn't a lot of plastic showing around the edge of the card as well. And whether the aesthetic is more important to you or the potential protection is more important to you, you should be aware of. Although I found that for most of the sleeves of this size, there usually isn't a lot of overreach for these sleeves. Next up is the sleeve test. I'm going to sleeve these 45 Century Spice Road cards into 45 of these sleeves and see how long it takes. Ready, set, go. Okay, that took 2 minutes and 16 seconds to sleeve these 45 cards, and that's a somewhat more languid pace of 3.02 seconds per card sleeved. Now, part of the reason why I think that this was a bit of a slower sleeving process is because there is a bit of static cling to these sleeves, and you can really feel it when you're trying to pick up the sleeves because they stick to each other, and so, to separate it requires a little bit of effort. And then sometimes that also means that the sleeves are stuck on the inside, and so you have to rub just a little harder to pop open the sleeve in order to be able to slip a card into it. Other than that, I felt like the sleeving process was just fine. Even though it was a bit on the slower side, it's not significantly slower that I think it's going to be a hindrance, but it's just something to keep in mind as you deal with these sleeves. Now that we have sleeved up this deck, let's go ahead and check for its consistency and uniformity out of the pack. There is a little bit of variation in the widths of the sleeves. You can definitely feel that some of the sleeves poke out a bit more than the others. It's not an enormous variation, and you can really tell when you're putting the cards into the sleeves, but you can feel it once the deck is together, so that's not the most heartening thing, but again, the variation is not enormous, and so this isn't the worst of the Mayday sleeves that I have seen, but it does not feel like it is perfectly uniform out of the pack, and there are definitely outliers here. In terms of the height, the same thing goes. There is a little bit of variation in some of the sleeves. You can feel that some of them are poking out, but it is not as bad as the width. Like with the width, if you are actually looking at these, and you can't really see it from that distance, but some of these are really visibly outliers, and you can actually poke them out. Like this one is noticeably wider, this one right here is noticeably wider, this one here right here is noticeably wider, and this one right here is noticeably wider, and that is not the best of sign for its consistency out of the package. Now, Mayday isn't known for being a very consistent product, and so that is something to be aware of. But another thing is that several of these sleeves have dents in them out of the package, and some of them have weird creases on them as well. There's a particularly dented sleeve as well, but Let me see if I can find one with a strong crease on the side. This one has a bit of a crease in the original package, and it runs along the side right here. It's not really noticeable now that you have a card in it, but as well as this one. But when you have it in the sleeve before you put it in, you can really tell that there's a crease. Oh, there's a crease in this one too. It's only really noticeable as you turn the card with glare, and there's going to be a mild line that runs across the right side. But it is something that's going to bother some of you who are looking for much less flawed sleeves out of the package. This is probably one of the more egregious ones. You can actually see visibly like a line that runs across here where the crease in the sleeve was. It's not terrible, and I don't think it's going to affect play or really mark the cards that much, but I do think that those of you who prefer more pristine sleeves out of the package, here's another one, it's going to bother you a bit. And so if you like having high quality uniform sleeves without any issues straight out of the package, oh, there's a bunch of dents on this one too, then these sleeves are not going to be for you. This one, you can see the sleeve crease in the back and the front, and so this one might be one of the more egregious examples that might actually be able to mark a card if somebody's really working hard to pay attention to your sleeve. So not the greatest for consistency, uniformity, and just presentation right out of the package. Now it's time for the shuffle test. I'm going to shuffle this sleeve deck 100 times and see how long it takes. Ready, set, go. Alright, it took 2 minutes and 29 seconds to shuffle this deck 100 times. And that's actually a very respectable speed of 1.49 seconds per shuffle. I actually felt that this was certainly one of the easier decks to shuffle. The cards didn't have a lot of bounce when you slid them against each other for a mass shuffle. As you can see, it just goes right into each other. And there is a bit of resistance, which is common to these glossy sleeves when you are sliding them against each other. But other than that, I felt like this was one of the easier decks to shuffle. And so I think that for all of its issues with its look and feel straight out of the package, at least it handles pretty well, and I appreciate that about these sleeves. Now that I have handled these sleeves a bit, let's go ahead and see how much wear is on them. Here we go. Okay, so there does appear to be some very slight loss of luster to the gloss on the surface of the sleeve, and so it does seem like as these sleeves rub against each other, we're gonna eventually lose some of the gloss, and that's gonna lead to these sleeves wearing, at least in terms of its surface appearance, a bit over time. And I think that it's noticeable even within this early handling phase is not the greatest sign for long-term aesthetic durability. Like, it's gonna start looking worse, I think, faster than other sleeves, but that doesn't mean that they're not gonna be usable. And there are a lot of dents and creases in these sleeves, but I think all of those came straight out of the package. So I don't think that these sleeves are necessarily gonna dent or bend or crease that much more significantly than other sleeves. It just so happens that they come out of the package pre-dented and pre-creased. The corners don't get particularly bent, so that is a good sign in terms of their relative rigidity. And I didn't notice that any of the seams are split on any of the sleeves. It's possible that some of them are, but I tried to look carefully to make sure none of them were, and it seems that none of them are. And so that is a positive sign as well. So I think that these sleeves are probably going to hold up okay in terms of actually, holding the cards in the sleeves and not splitting. I think it's probably going to be about average, but I do think that these sleeves are going to suffer a little bit more aesthetically in terms of the loss of gloss on the surface of the sleeve as you handle them a lot more. So that is something to keep in mind if that is important to you. Okay, now it's time for the shake test. I have stacked these sleeved cards into a deck. I'm going to shake the table that they're on for a couple seconds to see if the deck falls down. Ready, set, go. Alright, the deck held up pretty well. Now, these sleeves are already kind of sticky to each other because they do have some sort of static cling to each other, and so I'm not surprised that this deck barely budged at all. I think that if I lift some of those cards, yeah, the static actually holds the cards together, so there is a bit of a stick to these cards. And I think that, plus just the general size of these cards, helps keep this deck very stable on your table. Now I'm going to draw 3 cards off the top of this deck and see how well the deck holds together. Ready, set, go. Interestingly enough, despite the fact that there's a little bit of static holding these sleeves together with each other, you can actually pick up the sleeved cards pretty well. Oh, now there's one that jumped with it. But it doesn't destabilize the deck when you pick up the sleeved cards. And so if the static doesn't stick too hard, it should be possible. There's another one that picks up too. So occasionally you're going to pick up more than one possibly, but it won't destabilize the deck in doing so. I do think that you might want to be careful to make sure that you're only picking one card up if you don't want the second card being revealed, or you don't want to accidentally draw 2. And so it is a pass, but there is a concern that it's possible that static that causes these sleeves to stick together may cause you to draw maybe more than one at a time. And so that is Mayday's premium card sleeves for tarot-sized cards. I think that these sleeves have some issues, I think specifically in the production and the aesthetics. I do wish that they were more uniform in terms of their width and their height, and I do wish that they didn't come with blemishes on almost every sleeve in terms of dents or creases, which, you know, is not the most aesthetically pleasing thing. Similarly, the aesthetics are going to get worse over these sleeves, I think faster than other sleeves, because you can notice that there is some loss of the gloss and luster of the sleeves even within early handling. And so those are some real negatives. And I think that if these sleeves were cheaper, then this might be okay, but the fact that these are more of an average price as opposed to being a more budget priced sleeve makes it a little bit harder to accept that these sleeves have these flaws in them. And so it's hard for me to say that these are your best choice of sleeves when they are flawed and slightly more expensive than the budget options here. And so if you like Mayday, I mean, these sleeves are going to work in terms of, do they protect your cards? Yes, they do. Are they usable? Yes, they are. In fact, that they are slightly on the better end of handling. But these don't qualify as a good value, and they're not high quality, and so I don't know exactly who these sleeves are for, except for people who just want to, you know, buy Mayday sleeves. And if these are the only sleeves that are available in your store, this is not bad, but it's also not a great product, neither in terms of value or in terms of quality. So that is it for these Mayday sleeves. Let me know what your thoughts were, if you have any experience with these sleeves, in the comments below. And if you have any experience with tarot-sized card sleeves, I also have links to surveys in the description box below, and you can click on those and share your experience, and those results will be posted at the Innate Games' resource page, also linked in the description box. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more such videos, hit subscribe. This was Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.